Do you know how many trees can fit inside Belgium? I don't know either, but according to a study from the University of Maryland, that's the amount of trees forest fires burn down each year. These same fires have caused over a quarter of all tree loss in the last 20 years. Why is that? It's all thanks to global warming. Increasing carbon emissions fuel climate change and create hotter and dry conditions. And those hotter and dry conditions also dry out the forests and other vegetation, which have the potential to cause catastrophic fires, especially if climate issues go unregulated for years. I saw this occur in real life last summer when my family and I were evacuated from the Maui wildfires. Luckily, we were all safe, but little did I know the flames I saw increasing in the distance as we fled were the same flames that extinguished 100 lives with them. Originally, my family was in Hawaii for vacation. Maui is known for its tourism, and Lahaina is one of the most popular destinations on the island. We ate dinner there and strolled around shopping, but by the third day, winds had rapidly increased, so we were advised to stay inside. When talking with a local, my mom asked, "Is it always this windy here?" The local wasn't concerned at all. He said that it would just blow over, and the hurricane that we were receiving crosswinds from was miles away anyway and would be gone soon. However, due to global warming, tropical storm activity in the Pacific, Atlantic, the Caribbean, and the Gulf of Mexico has increased over the past 20 years, adding to the intensity and frequency of natural disasters like hurricanes and their aftermath. And so, even though they were stemming from over 500 miles away, Hurricane Dora's crosswinds struck Maui hard, leading to power lines being blown down and lighting up the non-native grasses invasive to the area, which spread the fire quickly and caught emergency services off guard with its severity. The wildfires weren't seen as an immediate threat, though. On Tuesday, August 8th, I woke up to no power, no cell service, but I didn't think it was the worst thing in the world. In many places, there are backup generators, but apparently there were very few generators in the Lahaina area, at least that we encountered. Thankfully, we had bought some groceries the day before so we could snack in the mornings before breakfast, but it wasn't much. By lunch, we were almost out of food, and we were rationing the rest for my 1-year-old brother. We had to look hard to find food for dinner. My family and I ended up in a strip mall with a handful of shops and restaurants, including a grocery store, but we quickly discovered that only 3 restaurants were open for service. It felt like a guessing game of whose line won't close while we split up and waited in our respective lines with hundreds of other hungry people. The restaurants remaining open kept having trouble powering their stoves. It was complete chaos. I remember the food we finally received was cooked using gasoline that had been siphoned from a friend's car to power the generator. 3 hours later, we walked out of the strip mall with our food and were paraded like we had just won the playoffs. Everyone waiting in the lines with us clapped and cheered during our departure to our car, and I felt like a champ. However, I was grimly reminded of our situation when we got back to our hotel and ate dinner in pitch black. We all went to bed shortly after, and it felt like I was still in a nightmare when I heard the broadcast system play its creepy ringtone, waking me up at 3:30 a.m. A man's voice came over the loudspeaker and announced that the wildfires were rapidly approaching. I still remember his exact words. "The fires are coming this way. We strongly recommend you evacuate as soon as possible." Simple, yet terrifying. I might have cursed that man for a moment because he freaked me out in the middle of the night in complete darkness, but I look back on it thankful that the hotel even had a backup power source that could operate a broadcast system that he could announce that on. Maui has an all-hazard alarm system, which the island's website states is intended to be used for a variety of natural and human-caused events, including fires. However, the 4 sirens in the Lahaina area that were part of the system that Hawaii calls, quote-unquote, the largest single integrated outdoor siren warning system for public safety in the world, were not used. Instead, the Maui Emergency Management Agency activated warnings through people's cell phones. The leader of the agency defended his department's decision not to activate the sirens, but cell phone alarms had difficulty going through because there was no cell service, so it wasn't as effective. I did receive alarms, but I also only received them after I had evacuated and had gotten to a safe space with service. Additionally, at the same time I got cell service, I also learned how bad the destruction had become. More than 2,500 acres had been burned, and the fire was in the process of becoming the deadliest wildfire in the U.S. in over a century. Natural disasters happen. You can't control that. But you can control their frequency and the responses to them. A recent report by the UN Environment Program and Grid Arundel predicts that climate change will make these wildfires more frequent and intense, with a global increase of extreme fires up to 14% by 2030, 30% by the end of 2050, and an alarming 50% by the end of the century. Also, all of the top 10 warmest years on record worldwide have occurred since 2005. It's not cheap either. Wildfires cause significant financial losses, and the Senate's Joint Economic Committee found through their analysis that in the United States, wildfires amount to between $394 to $893 billion in damages annually, which is equivalent to between 2 to 4% of the U.S. GDP. Munich Re, the insurance company of insurance companies, reported that from 2018 to 2022, global wildfire damages cost up to $69 billion in U.S. dollars. The fact that big-time insurance companies are doing their research should say something as to how severe this is. Wildfire loss is a lose-lose scenario because lives are lost, homes are burned down, and the worst part is, most of the time, we're the ones to blame. Nationally, almost 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans, and whether accidental or not, only a small proportion start naturally from something such as a lightning strike. Increasing urbanization adds to the risk, so how do we lower that? Like we say in Scouts, be prepared. Smokey the Bear has also been saying for almost 80 years, only you can prevent wildfires. The U.S. Department of the Interior says it's vital to check the weather and drought conditions. If you live in Southern California and it seems pretty dry out, maybe don't fire pyrotechnics into the forest for a gender reveal party. Just a thought. Additionally, if you construct a campfire, make sure it's in an open location and not near anything flammable. Don't forget to douse the flames until the fire is cold either. Fires always have the potential to spark again. These viewpoints sound simple in reality, but if people ignore them, another 10,000 acres could be burned down in El Dorado Ranch Park, or somewhere else. If we all try our best to keep these precautions in mind, there's hope. As Julian Dendy, a consultant for the Coral Reef Research Foundation in the country of Palau, states, public awareness and education are the most cost-effective and practical factors in wildfire prevention. It's easy and understandable for young people to point fingers and blame their parents' generation and older adults for leaving behind a messed-up planet, but we all have a role to play in mitigating this crisis. Anyone can create an evacuation plan at home, and all it takes is a couple of minutes. That way, in an emergency, you're saving time escaping instead of wondering where to go. This happens all the time with house fires. 30 years ago, you had around 17 minutes to evacuate your home if it caught fire. Nowadays, you only have 3 to 4 minutes because newer homes contain more synthetic furniture. After the evacuation announcement back in Maui, my family quickly grabbed our belongings and headed to the lobby. The employees told us all we had to do was take a left and follow the road for 9 miles to find a safe spot to wait it out, but unfortunately, we never came across one, and the only way out was to follow the road that locals referred to as Death Highway for 21 miles along a cliff's edge in the pitch black. Aside from being prepared, how can you decrease the amount of wildfires? Legislation is needed for that. On his first day in office, President Biden signed the U.S. back into the Paris Agreement, which helps our cause. The agreement sets targets for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and provides a framework for global climate action. It was also adopted by 196 parties at the UN Climate Change Conference in 2021, which was the first time all nations united under a common cause to combat climate change. Additionally, in February of 2022, the Army released its first climate strategy, relevant because it accounts for 56% of the federal government's carbon footprint and 52% of its electricity use. Their plan aims to cut down the Army's emissions in half by 2030 and includes electrifying all non-combat vehicles by 2035 and developing electric combat vehicles by 2050. Pretty cool, huh? In 2023, the U.S. Environment Protection Agency's final rule on reducing methane from the oil and natural gas industries was set to prevent the equivalent of more than 1 billion tons of carbon emissions. Each year brings progress, and we're just getting started. The path ahead won't be easy, but with continued progress and collective efforts, we can work towards a future better prepared to face the challenges climate change may bring. Let's take action now for the sake of our planet and future generations, because from simple steps like being mindful of weather conditions and avoiding activities that could spark fires to creating evacuation plans at home, we can all make a difference. My name is Isabella Bogovich, and next time I hope you'll be prepared for wildfires without warning.